Hello my friends, this is late Friday night's Banter Blitz and we start playing right now. So let me just search for the guys I've never played before. Just as usual, 3 games against those newcomers and then coming back to normal order of challenges. And as usual, just let me know what is going on to the stream. Is everything alright with the picture, with the sound? Just type anything in chat. Alright, let's have a look. A lot of different challenges. Alright. So the drunken lawyer, we have never played before, so I will accept. 5 minutes, and I'm playing with white. All right, not bad for the start. E4, E5, knight F3. All okay. Thank you guys. So bishop B5. Shri Lopez exchanged to start with castles. And bishop takes f3. Okay. So it's playable, of course, but in my opinion, if black simply gives up a bishop in this situation, he no longer has this typical compensation for weakened pawn structure on the queen side. And, well, I'm slightly tempted by playing queen b3 here, just attacking b7 directly. So usually white wants to play f4 in such a situation. I mean, to play d3 and then at some point f2, f4. And in my opinion, this queen on b3 is not that bad. So once I play f4, I want to play along the f file, and in this case, actually, why not to have the queen there attacking f7 already? So something like that. Let's prepare everything carefully. Probably it wasn't necessary, of course. I don't know, maybe f4 immediately was better, but I was not sure about queen d4 check. Now it should be absolutely fine, but let's start with knight c4. Bishop d6. I guess knight d7 was slightly more accurate. Because now I guess I can play this. And after knight d7, black could have created a threat of knight c5 or something. So I base my expectations on the better pawn structure. So for example, if there is an exchange on f4, I will just take several times and then another rook goes to f1. It looks like I have a very promising position. By the way, I can't play e5 now because of bishop takes e5, knight takes e5 and queen d4 check. As far as I understand, then taking on e5, winning the material. Or simple bishop c5 check also works fine for black. So instead, I'll just take here an f4. So now to complete the mission, I need another rook to f1. And there will be a pressure on f7. That's why I played queen b3 in the opening. Better pawn structure, Mark disagrees. That's true. Mark is crying today. All day long. Queen d7. There's an interesting try just to take on f6, by the way. But it doesn't feel like I have everything ready for this. So instead I'll just bring the rook to f1. This move can't be bad. And probably slightly later I will play this. Rook takes f6, of course, if my opponent gives me a chance to do that. Mark didn't evaluate the position correctly. So true. He doesn't have enough experience in these pawn structures, I guess. Okay, queen e6. Maybe even intending to play b5, but I'm not really against that. Another idea behind queen e6 is probably to play knight to d7. Maybe it's just time to take on f6 right now. Let's try it. It's interesting at very least to sacrifice the exchange this way. Takes and queen to c3. That's what I wanted to do. Just to attack f6 directly, and now if king g7, then knight e3, knight f5 can be done with the tempo. Is it the best move though? I'm not sure. Should be very promising. Black also has the idea of bringing the queen to e5. So maybe it makes sense for me to start with rook f5 move, just covering e5 square. Just controlling everything here first. Including h5, so black can't play h5. It's important because if I bring the knight to e3, then to g4 attacking f6, black can stop me from doing it by playing h5. Now it's, well, not that simple. Looks very nice. Rook to d8. Okay, let's focus on the game. There was a funny comment like, Hesmark is short with Ostrovskiy student imprint. Not yet. Not yet, but, well. We'll fix that in the future. Okay, I can still take on f6 if I want here, if I'm not mistaken, so let's do it. All right. Let's go here. King g8, okay. Now what? I'm not sure. Not sure at all. Yeah. So I could have played this much better, I guess. So somehow I'm just misplaying it at the moment. But I'm still not that bad, I guess. In general, this position is very cool. But with the rook on the board, it could have been much better, of course, than this. Alright. Let's protect the center. Do I need this pawn? I think no. It's better to have everything protected here. But only 24 seconds. I'm getting slightly nervous. But with such a knight on f6, everything should be fine. Alright, this is a great blunder. Now I think there is no defense. Queen h7 is coming. With a crushing position. Not with a crushing position, just with a checkmate, okay? Let's try to be precise. Okay, not that bad for the start, but, well, feels like I made a lot of mistakes. So let's start with this. Rook f6 takes f6, and now queen c3, king g7. So why didn't I play knight e3? I didn't want this queen e5 happen. So after this, it felt like black manages to consolidate the position, so to bring the pieces to correct squares. I don't know, maybe it was just a fill-in and it was necessary to play exactly this knight e3 now, maybe something like queen e1 with the idea of knight g4 attacking the queen and the pawn simultaneously. Yeah, most likely that was the best thing, because rook f5 looked very solid and very good, but this simply slows down my attack, and black has the time to actually come up with some sort of improvement here, and I guess after that position is no longer that clear. As for black, I guess that in general taking on f3 is not very good, so instead just normal h5 should be played, waiting for white's playing d3, bishop e3, and then just bringing the queen to f6 and at least damaging my pawn structure. That's the idea, to have a compensation for the bishop that goes away from the board. But because here I think I have very simple play, like d3, then f4, and so on. So black no longer has this typical compensation in the form of pair of bishops, and potentially my pawn structure will be just better, because black's one is already compromised here on the queen side. So typically white tries to play d4 actually to have a pawn majority on the king side, but f4 is also the way of achieving position with central pawns d4, d3, e4, and in this case black struggles to find active counterplay. That's the idea. Alright, so let's go further. One more moment. I guess after this exchange on f4, rook f4, of course it was necessary to go away with the knight immediately, maybe to d7, or at least to have the queen somewhere here protected. But in any case, after queen e7, let's say rook to f1, I already won take, so I guess it wasn't very cool to give me a chance to sacrifice the exchange this way, because well, it is just a position without risk for white, I guess, because the pawn structure is so bad on both flanks and position remains closed, so black doesn't really have a chance to activate the rooks. So I would say something like knight d7 could have been played here, just going away. Yeah, it's a passive position, but still playable. All right, let's go further. Let's see, what do we have? What do we have here? A lot of different challenges, but I'm searching for somebody I've never played before. So against almost everybody I played at least one game. It's very cool. So many followers. Okay, another one. I found the guy, so accept. And black pieces. Oops, my board just runs away. Let's do e4, e5. Try to play solid today, because, well, didn't have enough practice. I mean, blitz practice during this week, and have to be careful. Rook e1. So b5, because pawn on e4 is already protected. There was a threat of just taking on c6 and taking on e5. And h3 instead of c3 or a4 or anything. Let's try just knight to a5. I want to try to grab this guy. Why not, after all? Bishop is a bishop, especially when it is a Spanish bishop. Well, I'm just grabbing it. I think black had no choice. All right, so pair of bishops. Light squared 1 doesn't have a counterpart anymore. So it would be very logical to try to prepare f7, f5, I guess. Because I have a feeling that white will play something like d3. Yeah. Now castles. And, well, f5 is quite realistic. So I can try knight e7 and f5, for example. I don't know if I need c7, c5 here. Just to control d4 additionally. I'm not sure if I need it. But the only thing that stops me from playing knight d7 here is that white can play d4. In which case f5 is unclear. Maybe it's even better for white. Potentially, because there will be kind of strange pawn structure with the isolated pawn on e5. Alright, to play c5 or not to play c5. Okay, let's start with the c5. Let's grab some space on the queen side as well. Knight f1. Okay. So he was crying, now he's laughing. Well, it's a better thing, of course. Knight to e3, okay, with two ideas. To bring the knight to d5, which is, by the way, also possible if white plays c4. And knight to f5. Knight to f5 looks slightly annoying, so I'll just play g6. Yep. So white's play is very logical after I captured that bishop. Well, it's a good strategy to put the pawns in light squares, just limiting my light squared bishop. And this knight d5 is coming. Right, let's wait a bit. I don't think I have to define the pawn structure. I actually don't want to define the pawn structure there. I want to keep the tension. Don't want to play b4 right now. So white wants to play bishop a5, which is probably not that dangerous. So let's put the bishop on f8. Just a slight improvement. I'm not sure though if it is an improvement at all, because bishop is still ugly there. Okay. So now I guess I have to prevent knight g4. Otherwise I just lose the defender of the d5 square. And I definitely want to take with the knight if the knight goes there. I mean, knight e3 goes to d5. I want to take with my knight to save the bishop, then to bring that bishop to c8 maybe. Something like this. Alright, queen e7. So we're still waiting. By the way, I can think of playing b4 now, because I'm not sure that that bishop will find a good square after that. Let's try it, it's interesting. So this bishop is kind of trapped, but I don't really want to, well, win it. I just want to ask white if there is a chance to play with such a bishop in general. Okay. Now it's time. So potentially I will just have an extra minor piece, which is not bad, for sure. But I have to be careful. So first I will play f6 to cover g5. King h7. Bishop h6. Does it make sense, I think? Yeah, it makes sense. Now the bishop is out of play. c7 is the only way to activate it. So just to play f5 right now, or to start with rook e7. I don't know what is the best way to do this. Let's play rook e7, just to add some flexibility to my queen. Now I can go to b5, for example. I can also activate the bishop b7 now, through c8. Yeah, let's bring all the pieces to the king side, because I think we will play there. Alright, it's time to define the situation. Something like this. So activating everything here. Alright. Let's have the bishop here as well, to control more squares. Potentially. Okay, queen b5. Attacking the bishop and d3 pawn. Yeah, maybe that was not necessary. Come on. Alright, go away. Go away. That was just a waste of time. That was just a waste of time for me. Alright, what to do here? I have no idea, actually, how to win this. How to win this? There is no win, simply. Yeah, I'll accept a draw. So simply no time to understand what to do here, in fact. Was it possible to play it better? Most likely yes, because, well, this bishop was definitely out of play. I don't know, maybe it was unnecessary for me to play f6, f5. Now I think that something like g5 could have been also interesting to try. Just to stop f4, to stop all sort of activation there. To bring the bishop, so to do everything gradually. Okay, rook e7 was alright. Queen e3, rook f8, rook here. I mean here, maybe f5 isn't that cool. Maybe g5 in fact is better. Just stopping f4 and preparing everything just carefully. Not giving my opponent a chance to bring the bishop to the game. So like maybe bishop c8, then king to g6, maybe then f5. Yeah, that was interesting, but I simply didn't have enough time. Yeah. All right. Interesting game. Interesting game. So as for black, I guess after knight takes b3, takes b3. Okay, bishop b7 isn't that awful, but after d3 I should have done something faster than what I did. So maybe knight e7 deserved attention here after all. So just intending to play f5 now. But I didn't want to give my opponent this possibility, d4. However, in this case, actually, I can do something like, let's say c5. And if d5, alright. I just bring my bishop back to c8 and prepare f5. Something like this. If white doesn't play d5, then I can exert some pressure on this d4 pawn. Yeah, unclear position. Absolutely unclear position. Okay, thanks a lot for the game. Let's go further. So, who's next here? I'm on those I've never played before, so it will be the last game. Before we come back to normal order of challenges. Okay, here is premium user from United Kingdom, Priscilla. I'll accept. So, Ruy Lopez again. A6, knight f6, and queen e2. Okay. So I usually play this, and bishop e7. Now say d6. And here just knight a5. I think it's playable. So since white wanted to play d4 already, I guess it makes sense to prepare for this with this c5, queen c7, because usually we see this after castling, but I don't think there is a much difference. His position remains closed and I'm ready to castle next move. So why not after all? D3. Alright. It's very hard to focus. And your son is just doing something there and laughing a lot. It's very tempting just to see what is going on there. But okay. Have no time. Only 4 minutes on the clock already. And we made only 11 moves. Okay. So let's go back to c6. We already played c5. So it makes sense just to go back to control the center better. 92. What about just rook e8? Preparing some standard maneuvers in a spirit of Smyslov variation. Knight to f1. Don't want to give the bishop an opportunity to occupy g5, that's why h6. g4. Okay. And now it's quite tempting to change the mind. Just play knight h7 and bishop back to e7 with the idea of bishop g5 just to get rid of this stupid bishop. So it's usually not very cool when the pawn remains on g2 because there are some ideas like g3, h4, but sometimes it works even immediately after h6, so just a standard thing to do. So I have a feeling that bishop b7 is not the best move. Of course, bishop has nothing to do here in this diagonal. It's much better to keep the bishop on that diagonal, but I just don't want to deflect my queen. So for now, I just want my queen to be there on d8. That's why I played bishop b7, to have a chance to take on a8 if the a file becomes open. Okay. And now I think just bishop g5, exchanging this dark squared bishop. h4. Okay, let's take there. Now what about this? If he doesn't take on e7, I have an idea of bringing this knight to f4, which is a great square after white's dark squared bishop went away from the board. Oh, king g2 just helps me with this plan. That's strange. Probably my opponent didn't realize that I wanted to do this knight g6, otherwise king g2 is strange. It's like a great invitation, so come on in. Alright. King g3. Okay. Let's go there. Great square. So what is the difference between f4 and f5? That I can still play g6 at some point. White no longer has a chance to do the same with the g pawn because it is already on g4. Now, what to do now? Maybe d5 just to break through in the center. But then knight takes c5. No. It's early to do this. Let's just bring the knight to f6. This looks great. I mean, potentially I will have a chance to take on g4. Some interesting sacrifices become playable. I also have an idea of just playing some like king h7 and g6 maybe. Not sure if that works right away. Probably no. But okay, at some point may become an interesting idea. So it's time to actually activate my bishop somehow. So it's passive on b7, and since d5 is not clear, I guess it's just time to bring it to c8 maybe. Or maybe not. It depends. If white plays something like g5, I have knight to h5. It's hard for white to find the counterplay, honestly. And now I noticed also another idea for me, just to play c4 at some point. Especially if bishop goes away from c2, this c4 looks very attractive. And since the knight no longer has a chance to take on e5, I think it's time to play d5. Should be just very, very promising. Maybe I just overestimate all this. So white is still playing. White is still in the game. Okay, let's just destroy the center. I guess it deserves attention, something like this. Doesn't feel like I achieved anything though. Fantastic. Maybe just to take on e4 with the rook here to sacrifice the exchange. That will be too much. Definitely not correct. So let's take with the knight instead. There should be something, I guess. Again, feels like I just misplaying it. Alright, this is good for me, of course, after queen c7, but queen d6 was interesting instead of queen f3. That was potentially very annoying. Okay, now let's just open up everything for my queen. Yeah. It should be decisive. Now I get to f3. Okay, so that was an interesting game. Actually, it was hard for me to prove anything even after I got to f4, but I think that after this knight f4, everything should be just fine for black. But I don't know, maybe... well, I didn't want to play d5, although it was very tempting to play d5 here, but I didn't like my position after knight takes c5. Maybe I missed a resource here, but at first glance it looks like, well, I just lose a pawn, right? Yeah, so d5 is definitely not good here. But what I definitely missed is probably this maneuver, so knight through f8 to e6. That was an interesting thing, just to support the knight on f4, additionally, to control d4 against this d3, d4 move. And then to play something like king h7, g6 quickly. Yeah, that was much better than what I did. Yeah, something like this, really. So just knight f8, then king h7 and g6, that is the plan. And if white plays at some point h5, okay, this weakens g5, where after my knight through e6 can go to g5. That was probably a better plan that I chose. As for white, let's see what white did wrong. Probably nothing specific here, but I guess after knight f1 and h6, g4 is just too much. I don't think white is ready for this sort of attack. As for my taste, I usually prefer to complete the development here. So I try to do something like, okay, bishop d2, then a3, then maybe even b4, grabbing some space. Knight goes to e3 or g3 maybe, then knight goes to h2 with the idea of knight g4, and so forth. So playing for the control, so trying to control some squares like d5, f5, and so on. So positionally, because g4 is very committing thing. After that, well, you have to prove your attack means anything, and I'm not sure that you're simply ready for it. Again, I'm not sure that knight h7 is the best move here. It was possible, for example, for me just to prove, sorry, not to prove. Maybe it's also a proof, of course, but to bring the knight through e7 to g6 to f4 quickly, that was an interesting thing to do. Also, d5 deserved attention here, intending to play c4. I mean, I just played d5, and if you play knight g3, I play c4, kind of destroying the center, but this is a double-edged, of course, thing, because after ed5, alright, diagonal may become decisive. I mean, there's b1, h7. It's not very clear who benefits from it for real. You know, but at first glance it looks very, very attractive. Maybe not with the knight, but with the queen, of course, to protect c4. And this diagonal a8, h1 is also very interesting thing. So I can play bishop b7, then knight somewhere, and I have some attack. Don't know. This position deserves additional analysis, of course. But even black's plan was not entirely bad. So I just managed to exchange my dark squared bishop quickly. The only thing I did wrong, I think, is this bishop b7. So as we saw after that, it was quite passive there for a long time. So most likely it was much better for me just to play rook b8 immediately. And after ab5, okay, white has the a file. On the other hand, there is nothing to do here at the moment, and it feels like everything will be decided on the king side. So the bishop is needed here to exert pressure on g4 and h3, so that white is ready, sorry, black is ready to undermine the g4 pawn at some point when the knight g3 goes away somewhere. It's kind of additional resource, I mean. And, well, to continue the same plan, just to play knight or bishop g5 and so on. So, very interesting position. Very interesting position. Let's go further. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this games, guys. Now let's go back to normal order of challenges. Prison Mike first. And black pieces. So, my friend, you're welcome. It's your turn. Knight f3. Okay, so we're going to play something close, I guess. b3. Okay, so that was a trick. That was a trick. So actually, I usually play e5 against b3. Now, white kind of forces me to play something like Queen's Indian defense reversed. I don't know. Let's try this. I know it's not very serious, but in general, I need to add some pawns like e6, d5, and this a5, a4 is kind of very typical thing. B takes a4. All right. So now white's pawn structure there on the queen side is compromised. Sort of achievement for me. So let's play this. e6, just preparing bishop e7 and so forth. d3. Okay, d5, of course. e4. Come on. That is something strange. I'll capture it with pleasure. So probably my a5, a4 completely surprised my opponent. Because now I'm a pawn up, potentially. So I can even think of taking on a4 at some point. I don't want to. So instead I want to play something like e3 to know weakening the positions a bit. Don't want to take on d3, it helps white to complete the development. On the other hand, it is probably the best move from a materialistic point of view. What else can I do? Just knight to c6 is also a move. Yeah, let's play knight to c6. I mean, development is paramount. Bishop e2. Now bishop c5. Continuing the development. Looks interesting. Now I guess e3 is just what I should play. No, it doesn't look very attractive because f-file becomes open and this bishop will exert pressure on f6 as well as the rook f1. Right, probably I would just castle. But now I'm more or less forced to play this e3, I guess. Or just to take on d3. I don't know what is better here. Which one is better? Let's take, come on. It can't be entirely wrong. And now something like e5 looks very tempting. f2 looks abandoned. Can I play knight g4, or maybe it's better to start with the bishop g4? Knight f3 gives me a chance to play knight d4. I'll take this chance. Rook e5. So knight f3, gf3, bishop f2, queen d4. Very promising things, but I guess this one is also quite good. Just attacking the rook and preparing some sort of attack against h2. Bishop h7, okay. What's going on? I'll take it. Check. Right. Go back. I don't quite get the idea. Maybe I missed something, but it feels like a blunder or something. Yeah, now I have what? Just have extra minor piece or something. Surprising thing. Alright, let's activate the rook. Knight on d4 isn't hanging because of bishop h2. King f1, now it's hanging. So, it's time to go away. Okay, let's bring the rook to h5. Let's take this pawn. Not bad. As for two moves only, like rook h5, rook h2, and well, they're very close. Here's the king. Okay, only 40 seconds, but something tells me that I will manage. I have to be careful not to fuck up this position, because I'm a big master of doing that shit. So knight to d7. Knight to g1, okay. Queen to h4, no. This exchanges queens. Don't want to do this, so let's bring the queen to g5. 20 seconds, my god. Oh. It's very close to winning on time. Well, not that simple, my friend. I have extra minor piece, okay? I'll take it. Check. Well, I was lucky to predict it. Alright, I'll take this one as well. And this one as well. Now it's time to collect the pawns. Otherwise there is a risk not to be in time. So I have to ensure that there is at least a draw. Come on, come on. Let's take those guys. And queen. As fast as possible, queen. I need my queen here. Alright, I won. Whew, I was in time. Very interesting game at the end, but well, the beginning was very strange. Alright, this a5, a4. B takes a4 is probably not the best move. I would have done something like, I don't know, even bishop takes f6 deserves attention here. I mean, damaging the pawn structure and trying to compensate that with the close position where the knights should be slightly better than bishops. But another idea is just to, well, to forget about all that, think completely and just to keep developing the pieces like e3, bishop e2, castles, and so forth. So if black plays a3 here, well, sometimes it is possible even to go back to c1, and potentially this pawn a3 may become a problem for black. So there are some lines like something like c3 and even b4 and a3 drops, something like that. So can be potentially playable, but b takes a4, well, compromises the pawn structure. After e6, I guess c4 deserves attention. That could be a logical follow-up. So to control d5 square, right, to protect a4 at the same time, trying to grab as much space as possible. But d3 and especially e4, okay, I just take the pawn. And what did white achieve? Nothing, in fact. So after this knight e2, I could have played e3 immediately. I could have captured on d3, then captured on a4. I think in that case, well, white has some sort of initiative, but really tiny thing. Not immediately taking on a4, of course. If I start with e d3, bishop d3, it's not possible to take on a4, obviously, because of bishop b5 check. But, well, something like, I don't know, knight c6 here, a4 is hanging. White already has to do something with this pawn. At very least, it is just a weakness that white has to think of. And potentially I can grab it. So it can't be that bad. But I didn't want to help white with the development. That's why I played knight to c6. So I expected white will take on e4. In which case, it is quite interesting to capture on a4. And after, for example, bishop b5, it is possible even to play rook b4. So very strange position, right? So rook occupies not very standard position, but look, bishop is hanging, so most likely white has to give up one of them or maybe both, who knows. e4 is also under attack. So, well, black has some play here. That's what I wanted to achieve, in fact. Okay, let's go further. Here is Kramnik student, accept. Black pieces. All right. Ruy Lopez, Scotch. Maybe something new, don't know. e5. Bishop b5. All right. a6. Knight f6. Bishop e7. Rook e1. Okay, there will be something classical. Yeah. Castles h3, h6. So Kramnik student prepared something new. And instead of d4, just bishop c2 immediately. Well, there is no much difference, in fact. So let's do this. Rook e8 followed by bishop f8. All right. All right. So here we can play b4. We can also think of just g6, bishop g7. Even knight to a5 preparing c5 can be potentially playable. But if I play knight a5, of course, Why we play just b4, I suppose. Alright, knight to e7 with the idea of knight e6 is also... Wow. I'm so sorry for this sound. Yeah, Mark is definitely in the playing mode. It's knight to e7. Rook to b8. So many different moves are possible. So I don't even know which one to choose. Let's try just rook b8. I want to go away from that file. And to see what white wants to do with this a file potentially. Knight f1. Alright, let's go here. Knight to e3. Okay, it's time to maneuver the knight. I don't think it does a lot on c6 here. So we can try to bring it to g6, then probably to f4. Something like this. Yep. Let's go there. So, position is complicated. I bet he's going to play g4. So, let's start with queen c8. I don't quite believe that it is completely correct idea for white, because white is not developed. So, I mean, this bishop is still on c1. There is no this great coordination. It doesn't feel like a harmonious setup. So I can have potentially something connected with the d5 if g4 is played. That's what I mean. Unless I miss something simple. But this is quite typical thing. And I guess my pieces are prepared for this opening of the position. If white plays g4, I play d5, okay. I'll have some sort of counterplay there. But okay, d takes e5. This simplifies the situation. And I have a feeling that I have to take with the pawn as well. Because if I take with the knight, then after knight e5, d5, queen has very suitable square on f3. So, it's better not to give my opponent this possibility. And c4, wow. That is something unexpected. So this weakens dark squares a lot. I mean, almost everything here. Whew. How to exploit that? So bishop to e6 simply with the knight e7, knight c5 looks very, very good. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do exactly this. Yeah, and b3 just completes the imprisoning of the own bishop. I guess it's not very sound. Let's go there to c5. Right, have no time, so we have to be faster. Let's stick to some simple ideas. Knight to c5 or knight to e7. Knight to e7 is also an interesting thing now. Yeah, what about knight e7? Exerting some pressure on this knight f5. Should be annoying. For white. And by the way, there are some ideas of bringing the knight to c6 and then potentially to d4 even. So it's a multi-purpose move. Let's do exactly this. Just bring the knight to c6. Another one to c5. I will control a lot with this setup. So I like my position now, but there is a question if I have enough time to convert this advantage. I believe that I'm already better here, but who knows? Need some regrouping. I'm not sure which one. So let's start with this move. B3 is also a weakness, so I can try to attack it, like rook to A3 at some point. Yeah, also interesting thing. Knight A5 is also possible at some point. Don't know. So many different possibilities for black, honestly. Alright, let's just bring the rook to A3 and C. Okay, with pleasure. So dark squares are mine, simply. Alright. Let's come up with a pin. Well, I love my position. And now the time factor is not that, well, clear. I mean, who benefits from it? Because it feels like white is also in sort of time trouble, right? So let's simplify a position slightly. This is a great transformation, I guess. So black is just winning here. Okay. Just look at my knight and at that bishop. It's clear that black simply dominates the position here, but I still can blunder something. What I think I will manage. I'll manage to convert it. Is there a square for queen after c6? I'm not sure. I think it is trapped. I think it is trapped. Yeah. This is just a big win, I guess. So it was very logical play, and actually I punished my opponent for several positional mistakes. So the main one was when white played c4. I think it is not correct. Absolutely. So it was necessary to actually play something like d5 here instead. So if you want to play c4, it's better for you to play d5, right? To grab the space, at least in this case, your c4 is justified. But if you take here, look, my bishop is ready to go there, and I control dark squares already much better than before. So if you play c4 here, you kind of give up your dark squares completely. So there's c5, d4, my goodness, that is just a great gift. So bishop e6 and b3. Well, this is just what you did to this bishop. Well, you behaved like a criminal in this game, Kramnik student, because, come on. You have to treat your Spanish bishop the other way, so the bishop has to be active. Well, it was probably necessary to play something like bishop a4 here prior to playing b3, but anyway, this bishop on a4 is not what you want to achieve in real opus. That's for sure. After this, well, all the maneuvers are so simple for me. So I just bring my pieces to better squares. I have a lot of different squares. And white doesn't have the attack there, in fact. So I can simply just close the position and so forth. So, and, well, after bishop c5, it's over. I think it's positionally lost. So rook here, rook a2. And the rest, that's... the other stage was just to get rid of this knight f5 because it is the only active piece in white's camp. And that's it. Yeah. So c4 followed by b3. Now I would say this series of moves, d takes c5, c4, and then b3. That is which is absolutely wrong. I mean, absolutely wrong concept. Gives you nothing, but gives me a lot. That's, I think, was the reason why you lost the game. All right, let's go further. Let's go further. Who's next? Phenomenon is next. Accept. I'm playing with black, right? Feels like a lot of black games in a row. And a lot of Rulopes. So it's like a thematic banter. Something like in the previous game, right? So the same idea, just to control the center, overprotect e5. Bishop on f8 can potentially go to g7 and so forth. Let's play knight a5. Bishop c2, c5. And come back to c6. Logical. Logical stuff. a4. Well, we can try to repeat. So just rook b8, okay, giving up the a file, but being ready to play something like b4, then to take on c3, maybe to play b3, you know. We will see. A lot usually depends on which plan white chooses. There are so many different ideas. So my only serious drawback is the d5 square, I think. So now I can try b4, in fact. Looks interesting. Let's try it, because if bishop goes to b3, I just take on c3, winning some material. And if white plays c4, I just play b3 and force the bishop to the first rank, which is ugly. After knight h2, I can do the same as well. If I'm not mistaken, just b3, right? Looks very good. So the bishop on the first rank will be kind of strangely placed at very least. Correct? Correct. There is no longer play along b1 h7 diagonal, so I think I can simply play d5 if I want. And I do want. So d5, ed5, knight e5. Queen e4, which could have been potentially dangerous when the bishop was there, is no longer dangerous. f4, opening up the position. I'm not sure that white is ready for this, because again, there is no coordination. But let's see. c4 was also an interesting thing, but of course moves like that require great calculation. I simply don't have time because I'm playing Blitz. Now, well, d takes f4 leads to the isolated pawn e4. On the other hand, I would prefer if white takes on e5, in fact, bringing my knight to e5 and bishop remains on d2. Can I play bishop e6 here? And if f5, something like bishop c4, queen d2, rook e2. No, I don't think I achieve anything there. So yeah, let's just take. I guess it's okay. And knight to e5. Interesting position. Well, potentially my pieces are very active. Some of them are already quite active. This knight on e5, for instance, looks nice. Controls a lot, and this bishop on d1 is very strange, right? Bishop e5, rook e5. Okay, pair. Oh, pair of bishops. All right. So I was too excited to pronounce it correctly. There are so many interesting moves now at my disposal. Let's try this idea. So bishop b5, just activating the bishop. Forcing queen b3, that's simply the only move. And then I will bring my queen to d2, I guess. Oh my god, this position is so great. I can't believe there is nothing for black. I mean, nothing concrete. Something like c4 followed by bishop c5 at some point should just decide the thing. At the moment I can't see a good way to get rid of my bishop. So bishop d3 maybe. Forcing the queen to a2, then c4. Yeah, this should be also very good. Let's do it. The sort of positional compensation for missing pawn, but dark squares are weak, everything is weak. Come on, it can't be that good for white in general. Okay. b2 is possible to take. I think it makes sense to try it. Wow. I love this position. Just love this position. Everything is so active here. Amazing. And rook a6, I think. No, then queen d1. Okay. The knight is on f3, unfortunately. Alright. I think I can do even this. Oh my god. I'm losing on time, I think. Absolutely winning position, of course. But I'm going to lose it on time. Oh. Fantastic. I missed a checkmate in 2 after knight g4. Amazing. Yeah, it's still winning, of course, but man, it was possible to play it much better. it's a checkmate next move. Should be in time. All right. There was like knight g4, queen h4 after all this fantastic complications. I mean here. So I just didn't expect this knight will go away. I expected only e takes f6 or maybe queen a8 exactly here. But after knight d4, I think there is... Oh, no, there is not a checkmate into... So king h1 is still possible. Come on. Yeah, I just overestimated my position. Sorry for that. Sorry for that. There was probably a much better way to play this. So after knight f3, I believe there should be something direct. So I played rook e6 with the idea of rook a6 because it is a threat of just trapping the queen, by the way. But after bishop e2, unfortunately, there is a d1 square. So I wanted to play rook a6 almost automatically, but then I noticed this d1 square. Much likely it was necessary just to take on e2, in fact. If knight takes e2, then rook takes e4. Very good. If rook takes e2, then the same. Rook takes, knight takes, and just take on e4, extra pawn, and absolutely convertible position, I guess. So without big problems. But okay, c4 is also interesting. Just to bring the bishop, I was trying to play this sharp position. And just imagine if there is no knight on f3. Well, I mean, this knight, let's imagine this knight doesn't control h4. It's possible to come up with something like this. Takes here and queen to h4, but oops, it doesn't work. Knight is on f3. Controls h4, unfortunately. So, what is the best move here? I have no idea. It's somehow already not so clear. Most likely something like knight d5 should be correct. Like bringing the knight to f4 with continuous attack, for example, after this. And this. At some point, well, I can attack this g2 with my rook and so forth. Okay, let's forget about it. It was very, very complicated position. But as for the opening, I think white should have played bishop a4 here. So giving me a chance to play b3, just damaging the coordination completely, was a wrong idea. Absolutely wrong, I guess. Okay. Yeah. So bishop a4, and now position is unclear because this b4 has a drawback, serious drawback at weak c4. So potentially you can even come up with an interesting plan like knight f1, knight e3, knight c4, or let's say bishop to e3 and then knight through d2 goes to c4. So all of a sudden you start playing on the queen side, and I think you have not that bad chances to achieve something here. So this position is, well, not very pleasant for black to play because black doesn't have a clear counterplay. So this attack on the queen side just is not enough because I don't have concrete objects, and it's very hard to find a weakness. There is no weakness in white's camp. But after knight h2, of course, I played b3 and there is no coordination. Now I can easily play this d5 and I'm completely fine and even more. So this opening of the position, in my opinion, from a pure strategic point of view, of course, was incorrect because white is not ready for opening of the play. White needs complete development and the coordination of pieces to be able actually to meet opponent's threats. So look at this. Black is completely ready because all of black's pieces, all the black pieces, I mean, just control important squares. The bishop is ready to go to b5. I'm ready to play c4, bishop c5. This pawn on e4 is weak itself. Yeah, but the main problem is, of course, this. Bishop on d1 and this rooks that are not coordinated, and it's very hard to coordinate them. All right, let's go further. Here is Graf von Palen. Accept. And this is the last for today. I'm sorry, guys, for that, but I have to wake up tomorrow really early. That's why. Today, just 1 hour and 30 minutes only. So there will be this crazy line with b6, g6. and takes f3. Experimental approach. And the knight is hurrying to f5 or somewhere. Queen to d3. Okay, this deserves attention, of course. So d4 is protected. What to do next? Let's try bishop to g7. Simply continue the development. All right. Let's ask the bishop. Maybe he wants to capture on f6 and I'm not against. Okay, but this at least stops h4, h5 potentially. Let's castle. Now I'd like to come up with something like e5 or d5 or maybe both at the proper moment. Another idea is just to play knight e7, knight f5, but it's not realistic because I do believe white will play e4 at some point. So e5 or not? No, e5 looks ugly for black. After all, let's try this. Not sure if it is a correct decision. So I could have captured on e4, of course, but in that case f takes e4, which is possible. Bishop h3. Right, let's go back. So now white doesn't have pair of bishops. That is important achievement for me. And the pawn structure is better for me as well. Castle's lawn. Alright. So now it's time to do something on... Well, not necessarily the queen side, but queen side looks just natural for me to play. d5 looks not bad. Yeah, let's play d5. Maybe it is too much. Maybe I should have played c6 first and then d5. Knight g3, alright. I definitely don't want to take on g3, it's clear. Knight h4 is a candidate move and knight to d6. I guess knight to d6 should be played, just attacking c4. Okay. So now I just have to open up diagonal h8, a1, and I will have very good initiative. Very dangerous potentially for white. But let's get rid of the bishop. So I think I need this c8 square, unless he plays bishop d7, of course, but bishop d7 is double-edged, I guess. But if he doesn't play bishop d7, alright, I have c8 square for my rook. Unclear position. Wow. Yeah, bishop d7. That is correct, I think. That is correct. Alright, let's attack this one. So at least winning some tempi. Now I open up the d file for my rook. But I'm still not sure if I achieve anything there. So check, attacking f2 at the same time. King b1, so white is not against. So I can simply take on f2 if I want. But there are some potential difficulties with the queen. No, I guess it's better for me to maneuver the knight somehow. So for example, knight c8 attacking d4. Why not? d4 is under attack now. Want to bring my knight to e7. If white plays e5, I get take with the bishop. Alright, after d5, diagonal is open, finally. So mission is complete. Mission is complete. Let's start with this. Now my bishop is just gorgeous here in g7, come on. Very tempting just to take on e3 and to play with this much better pawn structure with the bishop against the knight. Yeah, why not? Let's try to convert it. Let's try to convert it. So bishop here takes rook d8. Okay, I should grab this d7 pawn easily. It's mine. To take on g3 or not to take on g3. Let's take. Simplifying the position. Just bringing the king here, taking d7. Everything is just cool. It's over. So that is a very tricky line, and of course white has to play aggressively here after bishop takes f3. I personally prefer just playing e takes f3 because white has pair of bishops, and looks like after e takes f3 it's easier to come up with the open position, to open up the position if you want. G takes f3 is also absolutely normal reaction. But after knight c6, I don't think that queen d3 is the best move. So I saw some players just play e3 here in this position, then bishop d2 castles. But queen d3 feels like a better approach, because in this case, well, you develop a bishop on slightly more active position on g5. So yeah, why not? Queen d3 should be okay, in my opinion. Here, most likely, instead of bishop g7, I could have tried something like knight h5. In fact, preventing bishop g5, having in mind something like queen h4 if necessary, and only after that just playing this bishop g7, maybe knight e7, knight f5, so what I did in the game. The point is that I'm just trying to use the vulnerability of the king side now because the pawn structure is kind of bad. So it is something like, Nimzo Indian in the mirror. So I also give up a bishop and damage the pawn structure. Well, it is just the other side, right? That's why at first glance it looks something strange. But it makes sense. Why not? So I actually came up with same maneuvers there. So if white plays e4, I try to use the vulnerability of the f4 square. So, I mean, in this case, I try to bring my queen there to blockade the rook's pawn and to exert some pressure on it and so forth. So I think it's a playable thing for black in general. Okay, bishop g7, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4 was cool. Castles. And here I expected something like f4 even. Interesting thing. After knight e7, something like bishop g2. But in this case, I can play c6, I think, and then to come up with a d5. But I'm not sure what to do if white just aggressively occupies the center here with all the pawns. So it feels like white has more space, a lot of space, in fact. And it's very hard to find good squares for my knights. So that deserved attention, I think. So just f4, preventing g5, controlling e5, and preparing bishop to g2. All right, so after e3, I think I have more possibilities. So knight e7, already preparing this knight f5. And now e4 is, in my opinion, no longer that clear because I just play knight h5, exactly trying to get to this f4 square. Still looks good for white, but some problems with dark squares are potentially possible because bishop is out of place slightly, this one on h4, I mean, and I can play something like c5 if I want, again, activating my bishop enormously and so forth. All right, knight e4 was interesting, knight to f5, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. Here I expected, of course, knight takes f6, just leaving me without this potentially very good bishop and castling. So I thought that was the best way for white to play, followed by f4, if necessary h4, some aggressive play in the center, trying to bring the bishop somewhere to g2 to e4 maybe, and so forth. Bishop h3 definitely gave me more chances because now I have this bishop on the board, and potentially this diagonal, as we saw, was very, very important. So d5, knight here, knight d6, cd5, ed5. So here position is double-edged, but I think black has very good play against white's pawns because there are a lot of weaknesses, a lot of vulnerabilities, and what is interesting here is that this bishop on c6, which looks fine, in fact, it's slightly hard to understand what he's doing, in fact. So it is not clear what does this bishop attack. So I guess this position is potentially slightly better for black, but after d5 it's 100% better for black because this bishop does nothing, while my bishop g7 is here to attack b2 at very least, and after queen e3, well, this pawn structure is very bad for white, and the bishop, which has objects of attack on both flanks, just dominates the knight, which is quite bad. All right, thanks a lot for being with me this night. In a week, I will try to play much more, just usual 2 hours. Today, as I said, I'm sorry, but I have to wake up really early. So wish you a great weekend and see you very soon. So to be notified about my activities, just don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter. Bye-bye.